What's going on, Audioholics? I'm Tyler and he's Logan, and today we are going to be doing our very first movie review on the channel.
How exciting.
Yeah, so exciting. And today we're going to be doing the new Candyman movie, directed by Nia DaCosta and starring Yahya Abdul Mateen II. I apologize if I don't pronounce that correctly. I am a huge fan of the original Candyman movie, so I had certain expectations for this movie, especially since Tony Todd is back in the role of Candyman.
And I didn't see shit.
Yeah, so he came into this movie kind of blind. We were originally intending to watch it together before we went, but that didn't happen.
That didn't really happen. I saw the remake, which, by the way, to start off with, isn't really a remake.
Yeah, it's sort
not. It's sort of like a soft reboot. Like, picture sort of like the recent Halloween movie or the Evil Dead remake. It still takes place in the same universe as the original 1992 Candyman movie, but it focuses on different people.
Yeah, so this movie stars Yahya Abdul in the form of this painter, which was his name Jack Hyde.
Oh yeah, that's right, because it was just like, yeah, I remember that, because I was just like, is this supposed to be like a bad bastardization on like Jekyll and Hyde?
I don't know, like at the point
that
where
seems
we
like
don't
something stupid the writers
of the
would have
characters'
done.
names. Yeah, we'll get to that. The characters in this movie are very unmemorable. But anyway, like the main guy, he's a painter and he's like lost all of inspiration, and so he goes to Cabrini Green from the original Candyman to sort of get inspiration and learns about the Candyman curse. And so we have a new Candyman movie.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm going to start off with the positives. So the good things about the movie. I think the visuals were strong for the most part. I don't feel like it was particularly well shot, but I'll get to that. I think, that said, like, the costumes, the blood, I think a lot of it was CG, but it looked good still.
Yeah, and I think, like, I would even go a step further. I'd say, like, the photography and some of the angles that they use, I think those worked pretty well. I think it's the movie, out of, like, movies I've seen lately, this is one of those movies that reminds me the most of, like, a classic horror movie and how it's shot. It kind of reminds me of, like...
I can see that, but I have some gripes about
almost
that.
like The Shining, or, you know, I could even say something, you know, more cartoonish, like Friday the 13th or something, but better shot, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, like, so many things have, like, this really annoying dark filter on them nowadays for absolutely no reason. And to this movie's credit, it kind of avoids that. And I think the lighting is more natural, the shots a lot of times are pretty. I think it looks pretty nice.
Yeah. And I would also say easily that the acting is a huge positive with this movie as well. I think everybody, for the most part, did really well in their roles, and despite the script's shortcomings, of which there are many, and we will get to that as well, I feel that everybody did the best that they possibly could with the material, again, for the most part. There's one glaring exception, and I think the main guy especially is really good, and I've seen him in other movies in the past. I forget what his big jumping off point was, but he's always been good when I've seen him. So I hope that he gets more roles. I hope this movie doesn't flop just for him, but yeah. With that out of the way, we can now get into
I imagine
the
it's
vast
not going to
majority of the
flop.
video.
Like, a lot of... Like,
no, it's probably not going to flop.
I don't think it's going to flop. I think there's enough hype around this movie that it'll just ride on that alone.
Yeah, it's not going to flop, but... with all that out of the way, let's get on to what's going to be the vast majority of the video, which is the negatives.
Yeah, fuck this movie.
Yeah, fuck this movie. I'm going to start out by saying the acting is pretty good for the most part, but that girlfriend character is horrible.
Yeah,
she's really bad. Almost all of the lines, even if they aren't cringeworthy, sound cringeworthy because of her.
Yeah, like, I'll be a little bit nicer. I don't know if this is really a spoiler. I don't think it is. Basically, like, as the movie goes on, the main character goes more and more insane because of the Candyman. And in one scene, he breaks a mirror, and this girlfriend is like, "Oh my god, you're so abusive!" I can kind of understand that reaction of, like, "Oh my god, he's abusive. Maybe I should leave him."
Unrealistic.
I don't know, like, if if your girlfriend or
Okay, but there's
if
clearly
your
something
wife,
fucking wrong. Like, if you love them, you don't just immediately leave. You try and figure out what's wrong with them.
yeah,
What's
but like
going
I
on?
would still want like some time to myself at least. Like
Okay,
I
but
would
she
want
was like packing her bags and like trying to leave, as in break up with him and shit. Like,
yeah,
I think that's too
guess.
fucking far.
I guess
man.
that's kind of too far, but I can at least sort of sympathize with that mindset a little bit. So I'll be a little bit nicer, but I'd say yeah, overall, like, it's just something I will say. I guess we'll kind of go. I guess this is kind of a good transition into some of the characters.
Which are not compelling at all.
They are
Paul,
very
really.
like a lot of the characters are just so two-dimensional, including the
not
girlfriend, including the fucking Candyman. I mean, like
yeah,
I
we'll
said,
get to that though.
yeah,
We'll get to that. The Candyman is like a big negative, but
yeah,
sticking on the character aspect, like in the original Candyman, we had Helen Lyle, who's a really interesting character. We had like the husband guy who's cheating on her, and again, rather interesting character because he has his wife who's like being framed for murder if you believe the Candyman exists.
Yeah.
Or if you don't, then she is murdering people, and he doesn't really know how to deal with that. And like there's just more dimensions to these characters than in this movie. And also that kind of leads into the script problems that I have with this movie. Like, I think the script is very poorly written. I know that Jordan Peele had something to do with the screenplay.
I don't know to
but
what degree his.
I can't
and what
imagine
actually
he was that
was.
involved, because if he was, this is disappointing. Us and Get Out were
Yeah.
way better written.
Yeah, like those movies though were directed by him, so I guess it's not
Yeah.
really. It's not necessarily fair to compare it to something like Us or Get Out or something like
They
that.
were written by him too.
Oh well, they. Oh, okay. I guess that's true. So like Get Out and Us. While I wouldn't say either of those movies were masterpieces or anything like that, I thought they were kind of pretty decent movies. Both of which kind of had like.
Racial themes, sort
But-
of like
well,
Candyman. So
well,
it makes
no.
sense that Jordan Peele would
Yeah,
want to
some
work
of
on this
them.
movie.
Yeah, but like. Both of them. Well, I was also gonna say like both of them had interesting concepts. Get Out had a very interesting concept. What if, racism? Like it's like
It's basically the
almost
Wicker
like-
Man for race.
yeah, exactly. It's like racism kind of just slowly builds more and more until it reaches sort of a climax, and that's Get Out. But and then Us. I actually don't remember that movie as much because, in my opinion, it wasn't as good. But a lot of people like it, and I understand why they like it.
I actually prefer Us to Get Out personally.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
didn't-
mostly because I hated the ending of Get Out. I thought the ending should have
Yeah.
been like the alter. But anyway,
yeah,
that's off the
that's
topic.
off topic.
So that does kind of lead us to the premise of this movie, and my biggest problem is they really didn't use the Candyman very well in this
Yeah.
movie. Like in the original Candyman movie, he was a compelling character. He was intelligent, like Freddy Krueger. He wasn't some like mindless slasher like Jason. He was hypnotizing and mesmerizing and poetic. And he's none of those things in this movie. You get to hear Tony Todd talk for like the last 2 lines of the movie, and that's it.
Honestly, I think they just had him just so they could use that as a selling point. It's just
I
sort
get
of
it,
like
though.
it's sort of like, oh well, fans of the original, we got Tony Todd. It reminds me of this is totally different genre, but just like stick with me. This kind of reminds me of the recent remake that Disney did of The Lion King, where they had pretty much an entirely new cast, which makes sense. It's a remake, but for some reason they kept James Earl Jones in there.
Yeah, but not Jeremy Irons.
But not
or any of the
Jeremy
others.
Irons, not I can't
Disappointing.
remember. I can't remember the other. Nathan Lane wasn't in there, I don't think.
He played Zazu. They didn't
I
keep
don't-
him either.
John Oliver did in the remake. I don't know who did that in the original.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway, it's sort of like, oh well, you'll be motivated to watch this movie because hey, we got James Earl Jones. You liked him as Mufasa in the original, right? But it's
Yeah.
just like
It just doesn't work.
it's just like just either like reduce one of them to a cameo. Doctor Sleep is a movie that did this perfectly. They had some of the original cast from The Shining. Like Jack Nicholson has a
That's
cameo.
sequel, that's not a remake.
Yeah, I know, but still, it does it perfectly. Like,
Also, that wasn't Jack Nicholson. I know we thought it was when we saw the movie, but it wasn't. It was somebody who looked exactly like it.
oh, okay, but it's like Danny from the original Shining, I believe, was in.
He's a cameo in the movie.
He has a cameo in the movie. That's perfect. But like once you start like trying to make one of the original people a main character, that's just like, oh well, we have James Earl Jones in The Lion King, so obviously it must be good. When in fact, it's absolutely not. And even like James Earl Jones is like phoning it the fuck in, but that's neither here nor there.
So, like, another issue that I had with this movie is, like, okay, if you're gonna bring back Tony Todd and make him some mindless killer, okay, fine, but, like, the kills need to be good. Like, they need to be brutal and gory and just interesting kills, but they weren't. Like, I understand kind of what they were going for with, like, the Candyman appearing in the mirrors, but not in reality, and so, like, you have to look at the mirror to see him killing people, and, like... But it just ends up that most of the kills are off screen, and that's boring.
Exactly. It's like the kills are basically non-existent.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, if a tree falls in the woods, do you hear it? Like, fuck you.
Yeah, and there's also this, like, bathroom scene where a bunch of high school kids summon the Candyman, and the reason why I don't mind mentioning this, because it is kind of spoilerific, is because it connects to the movie in no other way. Like, there's literally no connection to the movie. It just randomly starts in one scene to, I guess, show how the Candyman is being spread throughout schools or something. But, like, it ends up just feeling out of place, and, like, they just did it to add to the body count and have some horror scenes to show in the trailer. Because if you erase that movie, there's, like, 3 people who die in this movie. Like, it's...
Yeah, and not to mention, like... Well, I think this is probably a good time to mention this. Tony Todd in this movie sucks as the Candyman.
Well, he doesn't suck. He just doesn't have anything to do.
He doesn't really have anything to do. He's just like occasionally he'd be like,
yeah, exactly. Like, where's the awesome like lines and quotes?
Like
from
literally in the first 5 minutes, there's like a narration monologue by him. That's more Tony Todd in the first 5 minutes than there was in the entirety of the Candyman remake, reboot, whatever. The thing I liked about the original, like I said, I didn't watch the original first. I watched the remake, and even without the context of the original, I thought it was really disappointing.
Yeah.
When I saw the original, I was not as disappointed, but I was just more angry. I was more angry and almost offended that they would think so lowly of their audience as to produce something like this. To me, Candyman, I don't know if this is the writer's intention or anything, but to me, Candyman sort of embodies the personification of racism. And I'd love to divulge more into that, but it kind of gets...
We'll have to wait for another day.
You will have to wait for another day, because it kind of gets into spoiler territory, and...
Yeah, but none of that is true in this movie.
Yeah,
like, the original it had all of those themes and plot elements that were connected to the political messaging of, like, racism not good.
It's
but
kind
this
of like...
movie, like, throws it in your face. Like, every 5 minutes there's, like,
does,
a character...
like, the...
Hold on.
Yeah.
Like, every 5 minutes there's, like, a character going on a rant about, like, oh, gentrification, yeah. But then it has nothing to do with the plot. Like, there's no meaningful connection. It's just...
And meanwhile,
character's TED Talk, you know?
Yeah, and like meanwhile, the original movie was covering those subjects in 1992 when nobody even knew what the hell gentrification was or police brutality. I mean, I guess Rodney King would have happened the same year, I believe, but like, still, it was like a fresh idea in a lot of, especially white sheltered people's minds. So it was such a revolutionary film, and I understand why somebody like Jordan Peele would want to attach their name to something like a soft reboot of this movie. But it commits the sin that a lot of movies are doing nowadays for the past maybe 10 years or so, and that is like, okay, we're going to have a political ideology, and then maybe there will be a movie in there somewhere. Who knows? We'll figure that out later.
Yeah, you know what? And that's actually a good point, is that, like, the movie would much rather, like, talk to you the entire time than show you anything. Instead of, like, showing you a metaphor or a symbol of racism, they'd rather just beat you over the head with it. And kind of is also true of the Candyman himself, because there's so many scenes of them like, oh, the Candyman, he was this guy, and the Candyman is so terrifying, and the Candyman, like, just fucking show us the Candyman.
And, like,
I
also...
think Jeremy Johns said it best in his review. He said, where do I have it here? I don't know, but basically what he said is that a good movie can paint a picture and say 1,000 words through that. But what this movie wants to do is say 1,000 words to paint one picture.
It's like the classic writing. It's like every writer will tell you, if you want to do good writing, show, don't tell. Exactly.
Yeah. And this movie, all it wants to do is tell.
Exactly. It's just like, you know, and like, okay, fine. If your goal is to educate people, like, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and they came into this movie with the best of intentions, and they wanted to educate people about some certain racial issues going on, especially in America. I think that if you are dumbing the movie down so much that people who aren't able to comprehend, you know, complex symbolism and metaphors and things like that, for people who can't comprehend those things,
they shouldn't be watching the movie.
They shouldn't be. Well, and also it's sort of like those people probably either A, agree with you, or B, if they don't agree with you,
you're not going to be able to
change their minds with a movie like this. So that's why, like, you might as well, you know, do some clever writing and educate people that way. I would not be surprised if Candyman, the original movie, was a huge milestone in terms of changing people's minds about race, or opening people's eyes to issues in the inner city involving things like gentrification and things like that.
Yeah,
it would not surprise me like this. This movie is not going to change anybody's mind. If you agree with the message, fine. You already agreed with the message. This movie is not for you.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with the message, if you don't agree with the message, then, like, you're not going to from this movie. This is not going to convert any racists out there.
Yeah.
The only audience for this movie is armchair warriors who want to feel empowered. They want to watch a movie, possibly with their minority girlfriend, so they can be like, it's almost like Ghostbusters 2016. They watch the movie with their minority girlfriend, like, look how woke I am.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's just like, no. If you're bragging about how woke you are, you probably aren't that woke.
Yeah, so the
It's
movie
not a contest.
wasn't very good. But yeah, let's wrap it up and give our final ratings. So I'm going to give this movie a 1 out of 5, and you would have to pay me to watch it again. I'd actually like a full refund with interest. Thank you.
I would say I give it a 1 out of 5, and the 10% off discount I got for my pizza for showing the waitress my ticket to this movie was better than the actual movie itself.
Yeah, so did you guys see Candyman? I hope not. What did you think about it? We'd like to hear from you in the comments section below. But without further ado, we bid you film adieu?
Sure.
Movie adieu?
Video do!